Today's build's a fun one. I made a real-life sneaky panda mascot. This panda is actually modeled by a friend of mine. He's the same guy who modeled my Sasquatch build, so if you like that project, this one's definitely in the same family. I broke the model into pieces using Lube on. Unlike my Sasquatch though, this one is going to live indoors, so I hollowed it out and glued everything together. I printed him on my two Bamboo Lab P1S printers in PETG filament. I started this project back several months ago in early fall, so I'll be honest, I can't remember how many kilograms of filament I used. I think it was around 12. Because it wasn't going to be outside, I wasn't overly concerned about using the strongest adhesive possible. I mainly wanted something fast, so I went with super glue. I like it because it sets quickly, and honestly, since he's living inside, it ends up being plenty strong. I also tried a new tool on this build, epoxy clay. It's a two-part clay you mix together, and then you can shape it however you want. I used it around all the seams and areas that needed texture. It was a little thicker than I would have preferred, but the alternative method I've used before, Spot Putty, would have been too thin for those areas. Overall, I really liked working with it, and I'll definitely use it again. Next time though, I might experiment with heating it up slightly, maybe tossing it in the microwave for a few seconds, just to make it a bit more malleable. Once the seams were blended, I went around and retextured everything, especially the fur and hair areas. I also wanted to add a little sneaky panda flair, so I incorporated my logo, the one I'm designing and refined over the years, and added some drip as the youths say. Again, just using clay to build it up and make sure the seams stayed hidden. After that, it was time for primer. I used Rust-Oleum filler primer and absolutely went to town. I think I did 2 full coats just to make sure everything was covered evenly. Some areas still showed some faint seam lines, especially on the hat, so I thinned some Spot Putty with some acetone. That helped tone down the texture and hide some of those seams without losing detail elsewhere. On the shoes, the layer lines from the printer were really obvious, especially on the toe box area, so I filled those areas, but made sure not to lose the ventilation holes. I actually went back in and reopened them so they still look like real shoes. Once everything was primed, I painted the entire figure white. At this point, I wasn't 100% sure what the final color scheme was going to be beyond making him look like a panda, so white felt like the best starting point. From there, I painted the pants black, the arms black, and the top portion of the hoodie black. Initially, I wanted it to be a drippy texture on the hoodie, but with the folds it didn't really work, so I pivoted into a more faded look instead. I taped off the face, leaving the eyes, ears, and hat and nose exposed to be painted black. Later on, I realized I probably didn't even need to mask it off to paint, as I ended up airbrushing them, giving them a much smoother transition for the eyes and ears. I went back and dry brushed some darker grays over the black areas to catch the texture and bring out the details. After that, I actually repainted the white areas a very light gray that let me build up layers and add more dimension, especially on the face. I added dark gray to the recessed areas and lighter gray to where the light would naturally hit, slowly blending back and forth until it felt right. The goal was to make the darker areas feel deeper, like there were real pockets and seams in the sculpt. On the eyes, I added a charcoal-like dark gray and then deepened the edges with black to give them a subtle gradient. I also painted details like the lips in black and let that dry while I moved on to attaching the arms. That way, when I layered the shading on the hoodie, everything blended more naturally. For the logo on the hat and hoodie, I wanted a teal accent, so I started with a gray base to avoid having to stack a ton of teal layers over the black. I added pink to the gum tissue and to the tongue, and then added white in gradients along the teeth to give it more definition. Then from there, I added the black highlights, added with a little bit of gray on those areas that the sun would hit the shoulders and other areas of the hoodie. After that, it was time to paint the teal onto the hat and the hoodie. Making the base gray made it so much easier to just put 1 or 2 coats of teal to make it pop. His necklace obviously was going to be gold, so I needed to start with a black base, and then I just kept layering it up till I got the gold that I wanted. Most of you probably don't know, but I started out painting by customizing shoes several years ago, probably somewhere between 130 and 150 pairs over time. I still do it occasionally. Lately though, I've been enjoying these 3D printed projects even more. As I started these bad boys, I wasn't really sure what design I wanted to do. So halfway through, I pivoted on the design and decided to add the same emblem from his necklace onto his shoes in gold. And as always, black is my favorite base for gold, so I painted everything black first. I I also painted the stitching on the soles black. That's something I like to do on my custom shoes because it makes them feel a little bit more premium. Once everything was dry, I moved on to the gold. I airbrushed it on instead of hand painting, so I didn't have to worry about the brush strokes. Before laying down the vinyl sticker mask, I laid down a varnish sealer. I did this so that when I pulled up the mask, that it wouldn't pull up any of the gold with it. Then I carefully positioned vinyl stickers where I wanted the gold emblems. Some of the stickers needed a little relief cut, so they lay flat, and I used a bit of heat to make sure that they sealed tightly against the surface. When I mask, I like to go back over with the color underneath the mask to seal it. That way, when I paint on top of it, it is less likely to bleed under it. While the paint was drying, I glued the rest of the body together using E6000, attaching the legs to the base and the head to the neck. I didn't bother clamping anything this time. These pieces are staying indoors, and gravity alone was more than enough to hold everything in place. Once the gray base was dried, I painted the teal accents and added a subtle upscale leather effect by darkening around panel lines, something I like to do on shoes to give them a more luxury feel. After some final cleanup on the black and white, it was time to peel off the vinyl. So here he is, Mr. Sneaky Panda himself. The skateboard I designed digitally and then had a friend print onto the skateboard. I just felt like it would take less time than if I painted it, but let me know what you think.